All right, everybody, we're gonna give this a try. I know that I'm not here today, but we are still gonna learn some new notes. So these notes we will be able to use on our next test or quiz. So it's super important that we take these down. When I return on Thursday, I do expect that the notes that we're gonna complete in this video, you do have completed on your worksheet, okay? So what I'm introducing today is gonna be systems of equations notes. We're not gonna do all of this. We're really just gonna jump around. We're gonna focus on the graphing section, and then we'll go from there, okay? So let's jump right into it. What are systems of equations, okay? A systems of equation is when you have two equations and two variables. I'm going to give you all a second to try to remember what a variable is. If you need a little reminder, what is a variable? It's like a letter or a symbol. Okay, like X, Y, etc. Okay? So, what are systems of equation? A system of equation is when you have two equations and two variables, and you are going to find the numbers that make both equations true. All right, one more time. Let's go over this. A systems of equation is when you have two equations and two variables, and you're going to find the numbers that makes both equations true. Okay? So, that is what it is. I think this will make more sense when we kind of get into it and see some examples. But I'm going to shrink this just so we have a little more room to write for the graphing section. And let's jump right into what is systems of equations by graphing and how we find our answers, okay? For systems of equations by graphing, what are we going to do? We are going to graph both lines using slope-intercept formula. And I hope that somebody remembers after this long break what slope-intercept formula is. Slope-intercept formula is our favorite, y equals mx plus b. So we're going to graph both lines using y equals mx plus b. Then, comma, where our lines cross, will be our answer. And that's it. And then we're just going to say what the coordinate is where they cross. So, what you guys are going to be doing today, after we go over our two examples that we're going to do, you guys are just going to do a worksheet where you're going to graph the lines, figure out where they cross, tell me the x and y coordinate, and that's it. And you're going to have the answer. Alrighty, here we go. Let's skip on to the back page or the second page to these graphing sections, okay? What I want us to do before we jump into it, let's take a look at the two problems, right? What form are these in? It's okay, one of you can yell it out right now if you want to. I hope you just said y equals mx plus b form. So we're going to know the slope and we're going to know the y-intercept. And then what's different about these? What's different about these is that they're not in slope-intercept form already. So they're not in y equals mx plus b form. So we're going to need to get them there. So for our systems of equation, we need to figure out the y and the x that makes these equations true. So we need to graph them, figure out where the lines cross. So let's start with y equals negative x plus 3. how do we graph this line? Well, we're going to start with the y-intercept. What's the y-intercept? 3. So we're going to go down here. We're going to find 3, plot a y-intercept of 3. And then we go back. What was our slope here? Just negative x. So what number is in front of the x? Be negative 1. So the slope is negative 1. And we know slope is the same as what? Rise over run. So negative 1 over 1. And we're going to draw a bunch of dots. For these, it's super important that we draw as many dots as we can and we don't just trace our line and estimate. Because remember, our answer to these questions is where our line is going to cross. So it's super important that we have the exact coordinate on where these lines cross. So we just graphed y equals negative x plus 3. Now we're going to do the same thing for y equals negative 7x minus 3. So what's the y-intercept? Negative 3. So we're going to go down. Let's change the color. Plot negative 3. Boom. And now, what's the slope? Slope is negative 7. So negative 7 over 1. And so what are we going to do? We are going to go down 7 and over 1. And we're going to do the same thing in the other direction, except we're going to go up. We're going to go up 7 and over 1. And then look what just happened. That's a horrible line, but you guys know I'm bad at drawing lines. Our lines cross at a nice coordinate. What I want us all to do, let's circle that coordinate. Boom. That is our answer. However, you guys think I'm going to be okay with you just circling your answer? Yeah, you guessed it. No, I'm not. So what you need to do is you need to tell me what x is and tell me what y is. So let's just go to our point. What's the x value of that point? It's negative 1. So we're just going to say x equals negative 1. And then what does y equal? 4. Y equals 4. What we're eventually going to do is eventually I'm going to make you prove that these are the correct answers by plugging in x and y and showing that they're the same on both sides. But we're not going to do that today. Today, you're simply just going to graph your lines, tell me where they cross. That's your answer, okay? So that's example 1 when it's in y equals mx plus b form. And I'll pause there, give everyone a second to kind of finish up. If you need to pause this video right now, go ahead and do that so you can see the lines and have that little section. All right, let's jump over to number 2. So the thing about number 2 is that they're not already in y equals mx plus b form. So our first step is taking each of them and getting them in y equals mx plus b form before we graph. So we're going to have x minus 2y equals negative 6. And what do we have to do? We have to get y alone. So what we need to do is subtract x to both sides. These will cancel. And now, can we subtract a negative 6 to a negative x? I hope you all said no, because they're unlike terms. So we're not going to divide them, so we're simply just going to rewrite it as negative x minus 6. And the final step, because the 2 is touching the y, we're not going to add the 2 to both sides. We're going to divide the negative 2 to both sides. Because this negative is not saying subtract, it's saying that it's a negative 2. So we're going to divide by negative 2. And when we do that, we are going to get y equals 1/2 x plus 3. And I want to pause there and explain how we did that. Okay? So all we're doing is dividing, right? So what number is technically in front of the x was 1. Can we divide negative 1 by negative 2? Is that going to make a nice number? No. So we're going to leave it as a fraction and just write it as 1 over 2. And a negative is positive. And then here, negative 6 divided by negative 2, you guessed it, is 3. Now that we have this line, team, what do you think we're going to do? You guessed it, graph, or at least I hope you guessed it. Y equals 1/2 x plus 3. So we got the y-intercept plus 3. And then up 1 over 2. Up 1 over 2, because it's our slope. Up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. We're going to do the same thing in the other direction. Down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, down over 2, and then we're going to connect them. Boom. We've graphed one line. So what we need to do now is, let's go with orange. We can take this second equation, do the same thing we just did. Is y alone? No. So we need to get y alone. So we're going to go over here. We're going to rewrite it. 7x minus 2y equals 6. And now we got to move the 7x to both sides. We're going to get negative 2y equals negative 7x plus 6. And then we're going to divide both sides by the negative 2. We're going to get y equals 7 over 2x. Why is it 7 over 2? Because it's a negative divided by negative, which is a positive. And 6 divided by negative 2 is negative 3. And now guess what can we do? We can take this, I'll slow down. You guys can pause there if you need to. We're going to now take this, we're going to graph it and see where the lines cross. So we know that the y-intercept is negative 3, because it's our b. So we're going to plot that point. And then we're going to show that we're going up 7 and over 2. And guess what just happened? We cross. Boom. Are we done now that we've identified the answer? No, we got to say what x is and say what y is. So x equals 2, right? Because we go down, 2. And then what does y equal? Y is going to equal 4. Boom. Answers. All right, team. Before this video is over and the sub lets you go do your practice, I do want to say you guys will have some questions today, and the sub may not be able to get to all of you to answer your questions. So it's really important that you guys help each other. Don't be afraid to ask each other questions, okay? The first 5 examples will be like, the first 5 problems in your practice is going to be like this first example, where it's going to be in y equals mx plus b form. Second 5 is going to be like these two, where you're going to have to get y alone and then graph using y equals mx plus b form. And one more time, where your lines cross is going to be your answer. All right, team, give this a try. I can't wait to see you on Thursday. We'll see how today went. And please, please, please be kind, be nice to your sub. Thank you very much, and I'll see you Thursday.